25th, 2013 meeting of the Agenda Charter Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Cayley? Here. Mr. McCann?
Here.
Mr. Patterson? Here. Chairman Quattro?
Here.
Mr. Rocco?
Here.
Is there anyone signed up for the public forum tonight?
There is. When I call your name, please come forward to the podium. You'll have 2 minutes and only 2 minutes in which to address the committee. Please conclude when the buzzer sounds. Our first speaker is Kirk Russell.
I'd like to address the proposal to restrict the concealed carry weapons within the county office building. I ask you to stop this proposal, stop this infringement of our Second Amendment. I ask you to consider this. How many people are killed by concealed carry weapons each day in the county office building? How many people are killed each week in the county office building? How many people have been killed over the years within the county office building? I think the answer is 0. It appears safe to say that we don't have a concealed carry weapons problem within the county office building. Common sense says there is no problem with violence in the county office building. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why are you trying to stop law-abiding citizens from protecting themselves? Have you ever been the victim of a violent attack? I was accosted on the canal path while training for my first marathon. It's a scary thing. Almost as scary as standing up here and saying this. But it took the police 20 minutes to respond. Until you've been accosted with physical violence, you can't understand how it feels. Until you've become a victim, you can't understand how it feels. Why are you trying to stop law-abiding citizens from defending themselves? I would propose also that you rescind the restriction of concealed carry weapons within the county parks based on the murder of a 73-year-old woman shot and killed in Tryon Park. Her murderer did not obey the law. I contend that if she was carrying a firearm, she may be alive today. I ask you to stop the assault on our right to defend ourselves. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ken Matheson.
Well, by now most of you should know me. My name is Ken Matheson. I represent Monroe County gun owners. I represent SCOPE, and I'm here again about this proposed law to ban concealed carry in the county parks. From Penal Law 400, any license issued pursuant to this section shall be valid notwithstanding the provisions of any local law or ordinance. From 2010 Supreme Court Appellate Division in the matter of Schwick v. Mulvey. This is in regards to a Nassau County attempt to regulate firearms. Where the state has preempted the field, a local law regulating the same subject matter is deemed inconsistent with the state's transcendent interest whether or not the terms of the local law actually conflict with statewide statute. Thus, when the legislature has demonstrated its intent to preempt the field, all local ordinances are preempted. Quite simply, you don't have the authority to regulate handguns in this county. You just don't have it. Penal Law 400 and a Supreme Court case tells you you don't. So please don't send this on for a vote. It's not necessary. We have the right to carry concealed by the Second Amendment and by state law. We are licensed. We are not the problem. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Douglas Culp.
Oh, and what a fine evening. At least it isn't snowing. I'm here to ask you please to vote against this resolution to ban concealed carries in Monroe County parks. Let's not do what the school systems have not or have done, is make these gun-free zones. All that does is put people in harm's way. You go down to the park. I've been in Seneca Park in the middle of summertime. Now, it was not a holiday weekend. The place was jammed. I'd say over 1,000 people down around the pond. That's, if you pass this resolution to ban those weapons, that's 1,000 people that some nut can come down there and take target practice with. Right now, you've got over 80,000 people in Monroe County that have concealed carry weapons permits. At least give us a chance to enjoy ourselves without some nutcase trying to pop us off. With 80,000 concealed permits, and that's just Monroe County, that's not anybody visiting. With 80,000 concealed weapons permits, at least we have a chance somebody's going to take this joker out before he runs out of ammunition. Criminals do not obey the laws. You can pass any law you want, and a criminal's not, that's what makes them a criminal. They break laws. You make this resolution or this law to ban us from protecting ourselves, and a new phrase that has come up lately is sheeple. That's sheep-bearing people. You put us in a pen and you let a rancher take pot shots at us because we might as well be sheep. What are we going to do, hide underneath a picnic table? That's not going to do it. Don't take our lives from us. Don't take our freedoms from us. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is William Polton.
Good evening. I'm Dr. William Polton, and I had a constitutional law lesson prepared for you, but I only have 2 minutes, so I'm going to go right to my closing. I'm going to address the same issue that the other citizens of the state of New York and the county of Monroe already brought up to you. According to Dr. Aubrey Daniels, who's a Marine veteran, those who do what they say are trusted, and those who do not are not. I myself have had commissions in the United States Army Reserve, the Ohio Army National Guard, the New York Guard, the Virginia Defense Force, and the Civil Air Patrol. I spent the better part of 4 years overseas. I'm a former municipal police officer, police instructor, and I've taught constitutional law and emergency management. I take my oath seriously, quite seriously. I find it reprehensible that the Democrat members have spoken to the press and find me personally, as a carry permit holder, threatening to their personal safety. Listening to the televised proposal to outlaw permit holders from carrying into county office buildings, it becomes obvious that they are, pardon the pun, targeting law-abiding citizens. It's for the moment against the law even to own a handgun without a permit, let alone carry it concealed. It also sends a message to the criminal element that citizens coming to and citizens leaving the county buildings, citizens conducting lawful and illegal business, are unarmed, a ready source of potential victims. Do you intend to guarantee the safety of the citizens coming to and from the building? If so, how are you going to do that? Do you assume the liability for those permit holders that are victimized on their way to and from the building? Permit holders who would otherwise have had the means to protect themselves. How do you reconcile the disarming of permit holders with your obligation under New York law to protect and defend the Constitution of the state of New York? And again, I'm curious why I, personally, a former United States Army captain, am a threat to the Democrat members of the august body. At least I didn't get the theme for Jaws, like we did last night.
Next time.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Our next speaker is Michael Brown.
Good evening. My name is Michael Brown. I want to thank the legislators for the opportunity to comment here this evening. I also want to apologize for the somewhat extemporaneous nature of my remarks. I did not have the time to draft them before arriving here this evening. I wish to speak on behalf of the measure which would prohibit the carrying of concealed firearms in county buildings. I do not in any way wish to call into a question the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. I do, however, wish to rebut an argument that is frequently advanced on behalf of concealed weapons. And then I wish to suggest why my rebuttal has particular significance in government buildings. An argument we've heard this evening, and which is frequently made, is that the limitation of concealed firearms will actually make our society less safe. That the more people who have guns on their person, concealed or otherwise, will create safety. That a safer society is a society not with fewer guns, but with more. Well, how do we evaluate that claim? Let us look at the empirical record of American history. Do we know of a time in American history when there were communities within our country where there was a prevalence of firearms on people's persons, concealed or otherwise? I think we do. There was indeed a time and a place in American history where we had more guns rather than less. It was the Wild West. That was a society where many, many people owned guns. Was it a safe society? A society marked by an incredibly low homicide rate, by the ability of lawmen to enforce law, by the safety of citizens residing in communities like Tombstone. The data show that it was not. According to the Criminal Justice Research Center at Ohio State University, which has compiled a historical violence database, an adult living in Dodge City from 1876 to 1885 faced at least a 1 in 61 chance of being murdered, leading scholars to conclude the 19th century West, a society marked by the presence of firearms, was extraordinarily homicidal, not markedly safe. Thank you.
Our last speaker is David Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Quattro. I'd like to just ask a rhetorical question and then make an observation. The rhetorical question is, for those legislators that are wanting to ban the lawful carry of concealed firearms, how many of those have been fingerprinted, whose records have gone to the New York State Department of Criminal Justice, whose records have gone to the New York State Department of Mental Hygiene, who've had 3, if not 4, character references, who were investigated by the local sheriffs, whose request was signed off by a county judge? How many of the legislators that want to ban lawful carry have had that kind of scrutiny for the things that they like to do day to day? The second thing that I'd like to offer, and I apologize if this is inciting, I should say. I know for a fact, if you listen to the news in this community for the last several years, there are far more people on the side that are trying to ban lawful carry that have had negative connections and negative contact with the police than any of the thousands of lawful concealed carry people in Monroe County. Thank you.
Is there anyone who's present who is not signed up to speak who would like to address the committee at this time? Seeing none, the next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the January 28th, 2013 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. New business. The next item on the agenda is new business. Casey?
Referral 13-0047, prohibiting the possession.
Moved by Legislator Cayley, second by Legislator Lightfoot. Patterson. As is our custom here, we'll let the author of the referral make some comments with regards to the referral, and then we'll move on to questions from the committee. Legislator Andrews?
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this tonight. You have before you a measure that is quite simply a common sense, simple measure that would ban guns and other weapons from the county office building and other county-owned and leased buildings. It would eliminate the current exception that exists for carrying weapons in those buildings with a concealed carry permit. It's before you tonight for several reasons. First, most government buildings do not allow the public to bring weapons inside of them, with the exception, obviously, of law enforcement personnel, which would continue to exist in this bill as well. You look down the street at City Hall, the city buildings, the federal building, and all federal office buildings, school buildings, courthouses, the Hall of Justice. In none of those buildings are folks allowed to carry weapons. Even our own county parks don't allow weapons on the grounds. And why? Really, I think because there's been no legitimate reason presented why somebody needs to have a gun inside of any of those buildings, which would, in my opinion, include this building and other county-owned buildings. People, I don't think, really expect to be able to carry a weapon inside this building at this day. I know when I started looking into this, I was just really surprised to find out that, in fact, our local law does allow people to carry concealed weapons inside this building. I think that in today's day, most folks expect that in government buildings, they don't have the right to carry weapons. I think also it's important that we pass this measure tonight due to the inconsistency that exists currently with county policy and law regarding the right to carry weapons. If you look at the sign that we have posted downstairs when you enter this building, it reads that it is a violation of local law number 4 of 1991 to illegally possess weapons in this building. If you look, if you go down the street to the Monroe County Hall of Justice, it cites the same local law number 4 of 1991, but it reads, it is illegal to possess weapons in this building. Both signs cite the same local law that we have on the books. However, this sign in this building allows folks to carry weapons in here with a concealed carry permit, whereas the sign in the Hall of Justice building makes it illegal to possess any weapon in the building. So there's that consistency that we have right now. Additionally, if you go into some of our county office buildings, people are screened for weapons, and they're not allowed to carry concealed weapons, even with an appropriate permit into those buildings. So that exists right now. Additionally, county policy prohibits employees from carrying weapons in this building or any other county building, whether they have a concealed carry permit or not. And it simply makes sense to be consistent. And I think it makes sense to be consistent in the way of prohibiting all weapons from being inside government buildings, as most governments do. This law is certainly not meant to penalize law-abiding gun owners. I understand what's been stated this evening. It's just meant to bring the county in line with the policies that most governments have, and to provide law enforcement with an additional tool to keep people safe and to provide consistency, as I've gone through the inconsistent policies that we have right now. There's no cost to enforce it, and I would say that, from my understanding, certainly this law is perfectly legal and does not violate anyone's Second Amendment rights. Gun advocates are right, certainly, that the Supreme Court has struck down laws that infringe gun owners' rights to keep handguns in their homes, Washington, D.C. and Chicago notably most recently. However, limitations on a person's right to carry weapons have been upheld by the Supreme Court. And in fact, in the recent decision that overturned the Chicago's ban, the court cited the case Heller that said, while striking down a law that prohibited the possession of handguns in the home, the court recognized the right to keep and bear arms is not, quote, a right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever in any manner whatsoever for whatever purpose. And went on to state, we made it clear in Heller that our holding did not cast doubt on such long-standing regulatory measures as, quote, laws forbidding the carrying of firearms in sensitive places such as schools and government buildings. These laws are on the books. They've been on the books for years. They are perfectly constitutional, and they do not infringe upon anybody's Second Amendment rights. In addition, bans carrying guns near schools or post office buildings have also been upheld, and our own ban on guns in the county park is also perfectly legal. I think that it makes sense to pass this measure this evening. I certainly ask for support from this committee for it. I don't believe there's any legitimate reason why somebody needs to carry a weapon into this building or any other county building, and I hope that the committee will pass the measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Legislator Andrews. Now we'll take questions from the committee with regards to this referral. Are there any questions? Legislator Patterson?
Thank you. Through the chair, to the administration, it's been noted that we have many of our buildings posted, and the posting clearly states that it is illegal to possess weapons in this building. Is there a reason why these postings do not fully cover the scope of the law?
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that the postings the legislator is referring to, such as the one posted on this building, do reference the local law from 1991 for further investigation by an interested citizen or others who might want to look into the matter in more detail.
Yes, sir.
Through the chair, I hear you and I understand that, but I'm gravely concerned because when I went over to our social services offices located on St. Paul Street, I went in. They thoroughly screen everyone that enters. And one of the questions that I said to them was, well, you do realize that county law does allow permit holders to come into this building with their weapon. If they did so, would they be allowed in here? And the security staff were very clear. One, they didn't believe me, that was the law. They're like, well, I don't believe you. Followed by, and if that were to occur, we wouldn't let that person in. So my question is, why do we have a policy at a county-owned building that is in direct violation of current law?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Could the legislator please repeat the gist of your question? Are you asking if someone has ever been?
No, the gist of the question is this, sir. The current county law clearly states that concealed carry permit holders have the right to enter all county buildings with their weapon, without exception. The law is very clear. The policy that I have found at actually more than one county building is that anyone attempting to do that will be denied entry. So my question is, why does this county have a policy that is in direct opposition to the laws of this county?
And that question was through the chair, correct?
Through the chair, yes, sir.
Through the chair, Brett Granville, County Law Department, and it would be our position that asking this type of a hypothetical question, we are unaware where the policy conflicts with the local law. You know, it's not been brought to our attention that this occurs. There's not been a complaint raised, and as far as we're concerned, the local law is in effect at county buildings.
Legislator Patterson.
Thank you. Through the chair, well, Okay. I have a picture here of the sign that is posted at our county courthouse. It is illegal to possess weapons in this building. Any person in violation of this law may be charged with the misdemeanor criminal possession of a deadly weapon. Now, I went over there last week, and I spoke to a deputy, just one of the deputies who's doing the regular screening, because we all know that when you go into county court, full screening. And I said to the deputy there, someone were to come in here with their permit and their weapon, would they be allowed entry? And the deputy said, absolutely not. We actually have a policy, and what we do is that when folks come through, if they're going to come into the court, we take possession of their weapon, we secure it, and when they get ready to leave, we return it to them.
Well, Legislator Patterson, just as a matter of clarification, were you talking about the court or were you talking about the Department of Social Services?
Well, I'm actually talking about both. The gentleman said earlier, social services, they're not aware that there's screening there, and they're not aware that folks going into that structure would be denied entry if they had a weapon, because it's a hypothetical. I spoke to a deputy, and it's not a hypothetical. It has happened, and they do secure those weapons, and they do happily return them to folks when they leave.
Just as a matter of a clarification from you spoke to the deputy at the courthouse?
I spoke to a deputy who was doing the screening, because it's...
At the courthouse?
At the courthouse.
Okay,
and the reason why I spoke to a deputy at the courthouse is because they handle this issue and this problem on a day... It's not a day-to-day issue, but they are aware of it, and they have a policy for it, and they follow it. And they were very clear that no weapons in the courthouse at all. Not going to happen.
And that was a question through me to the administration?
That was indeed.
Through the chair, Brett Granville. Again, legislator, my previous answer dealt with the social services building, a different building.
Okay.
You're now changed the parameters. You've talked about the courthouse.
Yes, sir.
Courthouse, though a county building, is under significant different set of laws.
Okay. So through the chair, so are there a separate set of laws covering the courthouse on the state level? Is that the position, sir?
Correct. The unified court system controls that.
Thank you. Okay. So again,
Through the chair.
Thank you. Through the chair. So again, courthouses are different, but again, though you're not aware of the previous policy that I stated at our local public assistance location over on St. Paul Street, is it your contention that anyone entering into that structure with a permit and a weapon should be allowed entry based upon the local law?
And through the chair, as a point of clarification, we're not aware, you're misunderstanding the point. The point is, we're not aware where the local law is not being enforced. We are not aware of that position at the St. Paul Street address.
Through the chair, I guess I'm at a loss. We certainly do provide security screening at that location. Is the county aware that we do provide security screening at that location?
Through the chair?
I started with through the chair.
Sorry.
But thank you, sir. Through the chair.
And through the chair, single legislator's experience with one security guard does not raise to the level where we're aware that our local law is not being enforced at a county office building.
Legislator Patterson?
Through the chair. Through the chair. Are you aware that there is security screening? I am not asking about the guns at this point in time, because it seems as though that is a point of contention. The question is, through the chair, are you aware that there is security screening at that location?
Through the chair, clearly we're aware of that.
Thank you, sir. Through the chair, We are aware that, so the issue is not whether or not there's security. The issue, it would appear at this point in time, is the veracity of my statement.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Yeah, Legislator McCann.
I question this line of questioning. The referral that we're talking about is specific to this building and specific to a policy that we have here, not about security screening at other county facilities.
Point of information.
Legislator Patterson.
Through the chair, this is actually covering all county buildings. This is not just simply this building.
Legislator's correct. Legislator McCann.
And the reason why, the reason why that was done was because it would be illogical to say, well, the only place you should be safe is in the county office building. Instead, the argument is, and it is meant as no disrespect to the wonderful people who choose to carry weapons and do so in a legal manner. There is no issue there. It is instead a continuation of the local law and the notion that this is a sensitive place and that we have a great number of sensitive places that are county office buildings, and we are looking to make sure that all of them are held as sensitive places, that it is comfortable and safe for everyone. So that is the issue, sir, why I was again going back to the Department of Social Services and the screening that occurs there. I find it troubling that the veracity of my statement regarding what I was told by the company that is providing screening at that location is doubted.
Legislator Rocco.
Is there a question being asked now, or is it the interpretation of one man's
Actually,
presentation?
Well, just as a matter of clarification from me to you, Legislator Patterson, it seems as though you're arguing that we remove the screenings at those other buildings.
No, sir, it is not. The point is, my point is, and through the chair, and my point has always been during the whole course of this conversation, that our policies are in direct conflict with our law. And if our policies are in conflict with our law, we either have to change our law to be in alignment with our policy, or we have to change our policy to be in alignment with our law.
So that was your statement. That wasn't a question.
That's where I'm going with it. But in order to do that, I wanted to get some information, and it seems as though the administration isn't really comfortable, through the chair, isn't really comfortable with this line of questioning. Now, so again, through the chair, you are aware that we have a screening, and now, and apparently you've decided that, well, no. So you are aware that we do this screening. I was told by the staff there that if someone comes through concealed carry, that they would be denied entry. Would that be the proper response and action at that location based upon the law?
There's your question.
Through the chair, that would be in contrast and would contradict the county law, correct?
Thank you, sir. Through the chair, in the case where, just for the record, in that instance, which trumps which? The law? Does the law trump the policy, or does the policy trump the law?
The law would trump the policy.
Thank you, sir. Through the chair, if the law trumps the policy and we break the law, are we at some exposure? if we know, through the chair, if we knowingly break our own laws or even unknowingly break our own laws?
It sounds like he's conducting an investigation himself, the legislator.
Legislator Patterson.
Through the chair, the issue, gentlemen, is that if our policy is in violation of our law and we're breaking our law, I'm trying to find out whether or not we have some exposure there. There's
Legislator Rocco's right. The issue here isn't whether or not we're violating a law in particular at the DHS location. The issue at hand is this referral. So I understand what you're getting at, but I'm going to ask you to craft your questions a little bit more carefully.
Well,
please.
through the chair, I craft it that way for a particular reason, because we're government. We have an obligation to enforce the law, but we also have an obligation to follow the law. And my concern is, if we're not following our laws and we are violating the rights of the good ladies and gentlemen behind us currently, if we were to deny them access to our buildings, do we have some exposure? That is the question.
Quite possibly, for the first time in these chambers, you and I are on the same page. Thank you. That's never happened. Is there a response from the administration?
Mr. Chairman, maybe a clarification is in order. I don't believe the administration this evening has stated that it is a policy that there would be a different way that it would be handled if someone was screened, for example, and a properly carried pistol was on that person. I think what the legislator is referring to is a conversation he may have had with one individual, but as far as I am aware, and as Mr. Granville has stated, the policy of this administration is to enforce the local law that is on the books, and that is the policy of the county administration. If you are aware, or if anyone is aware of an employee or someone enforcing a policy that is different than what the local law states, we would be very interested in knowing about that.
And I am satisfied with that answer.
I am too.
Are there any other questions with regards to this referral?
I think we have a question.
We do?
You got one?
Maybe one minute, please.
1 whole minute?
Maybe 30 seconds.
Would be more like it.
Through the chair, please.
Once. Legislator Cayley, do you have a question? Thank you very much.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm going to address just a couple questions, or even just one, back to the signage, because I have a concern with the answers of enforcing the policies and then the inconsistencies with the signage. So my question through you, Mr. Chairman, is, are there signs clearly posted at the new Children's Visiting Center on East Henrietta Road?
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have you direct your questions with regards to signage and enforcement of the current local law to these folks in writing,
Okay.
because they really don't have anything to do with the matter at hand. So are there any other questions with regards to this referral? Legislator Patterson.
Through the chair, I humbly disagree with the chair. These are the issues which led to the creation of this piece of this referral that we have here before us. These are the inconsistencies and the concerns that we have there. And again, the reason why it was drafted so that it would cover all county office buildings is because there are a range of county office buildings and county structures. You know, this law also covers the Monroe County Hospital. And on and on. we have so many things that we do in this county. We are truly impressive. So when we do look to put together legislation, we look to cover things broadly, and we do look to do things in a limited manner.
I do understand and I appreciate that, and I think that personally a better approach would have been to inquire of the administration about the consistent application of or enforcement of the current local law as opposed to writing a new one, submitting a new one that quite possibly could abrogate the freedoms and the rights of law-abiding citizens in the community. You know, that's just the argument from the other perspective that we heard tonight. So the point that you raised doesn't necessarily advocate for the acceptance or passage of a new local law as it does the enforcement or signage of the current law. So that's why when Legislator Rocco rose the objection, I agreed with him. So if there are any other questions with regards to this piece of legislation, I'm happy to entertain them. Legislator Cayley.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration, does this referral as submitted violate any Second Amendment rights?
Through the chair, the proposed local law would not be preempted by state law.
Are there any other questions with regards to the matter at hand? Hearing none, I'd like to move to a roll call vote. Casey?
Ms. Cayley? Yes. Mr. McCann? No. Mr. Patterson? Yes. Chairman Quattro?
No.
Mr. Rocco? No. 2 to 3, it fails.
Is there any other unfinished business to come before this committee? There being no other unfinished business, the February 25th, 2013 meeting of the Agenda Charter Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of this committee is scheduled for March 25th, 2013 at 6 p.m. Thank you very much.